Imagine standing on the shore of a turbulent sea, trying to command the waves to be still. You scream, you plead, you strain every muscle to hold back the tide, but the water keeps advancing, relentless and unmoved by your efforts. This is the problem of anxiety. We try to claim power over things that were never within our control. We listen to the opinions of strangers, the volatility of the economy, and the passage of time, thinking that if we worry enough, we can influence reality. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus saw his life very differently. He believed that some things are within our control and others are not. This is the natural law of influence, a perspective that realigns the way we relate to the world. In his view, most of our suffering does not come from external events themselves, but from the assumption that we can control them. The tragedy of humanity lies in misaligned energy. We focus on results or possessions as our identity, while neglecting our character. When we feel the weight of anxiety, it is usually because we have allowed our well-being to depend on external factors. We want all the good things life has to offer: accomplishments, partners, and health. While these are natural preferences, the Stoics refer to them as preferred indifference. They are considered indifferent because they do not determine our moral worth and are not fully within our control. This leads us to the analogy of an archer. The archer can choose his bow, maintain his physical strength, and aim with precision. These are the things within his control. However, the moment the arrow leaves the string, his control ends. A sudden gust of wind, a movement by the target, or a flaw in the arrow's flight are all external factors. If the archer's mood depends on hitting the target, he becomes a slave to those factors. If his mood depends on the excellence of his aim and the integrity of his effort, he remains unbothered regardless of the outcome. This is the essence of self-mastery, shifting our focus from the arrow's landing to the drawing of the bow. As we develop this practice, we begin to understand where our influence begins and ends. We control our intentions, opinions, desires, and actions. Our reputation, property, the actions of others, and even our own physical bodies fall under the influence of the external. When we ignore this distinction, we experience a fragmentation of the self. We become reactive, living in a defensive state against a world that is simply following its own nature. By withdrawing emotional investment from what we cannot control, a great deal of energy becomes available, energy that was once wasted on worry. As we learn to use and refine his teachings, the nature of our anxiety evolves from an overwhelming feeling into a series of questions. We acknowledge our problems using the principles we have learned and decide whether they are within our power to change. If the answer is no, then the only healthy response is acceptance. If the answer is yes, then we act with the full weight of our character, unbothered by the fear of what might happen, because we have already decided that the outcome is secondary to the virtue of the attempt. This is the highest state of psychological control, a place of tranquility that cannot be disturbed. Circumstances are no longer problems, but the mountain that stands tall while the clouds pass by. In the end, freedom is not the ability to manipulate the world to our desires, but the wisdom to know that we don't need to. By letting go of the need to govern the tide, we finally learn how to swim. This is the dichotomy of control, learning to distinguish what is within our power from what is not, and directing our energy only toward what we can change.